Story 1. TIFU by giving a team member a joke Linux command. I have a group chat at work with two very skilled technicians of mine. One of them asked for a password reset, and the other, not doing it in a while, asked what the command was. Being the snarky jackass I am, I told him the command was rfrf no preserver, thinking he'd realize it wasn't anything password related, or ya know, a remove command for the uninitiated that will remove everything from the root of the file system on Linux. Think of deleting your C drive in Windows. Well, one copy paste and an oh shit, this is deleting a lot of stuff later, and I realized that our day was about to get a whole hell of a lot more interesting. We had a total of 48 mounted file systems attached to this system, and as one would expect, almost every single file and directory got deleted that wasn't actively being used at that second. It took us about 2 hours to recover the system from backups, and everything came back up as if nothing happened at all. Luckily, it was a test system and no one really noticed it just died. The silver lining is I guess we know our backup and restore procedures work, and we didn't actually end up breaking anything too critical. Guess I'll find out if I keep my job in a day or two. Story 2. TIFU by nutting so hard I almost killed myself. So obligatory this didn't happen today, but years ago. My sophomore year of college, I was studying hard for finals. I was so stressed out by how much I had to study, I neglected some of my needs, from sleep to more personal needs. One day after a 6-hour study session, I decided to get a late lunch. On my way back to my dorm, I started to get a stomachache. I thought, okay, maybe ate something that didn't sit right. Let's nap this off, then get back to studying. I woke up an hour later drenched in sweat. My stomach was hurting so bad I almost threw up in my bed. Instant I knew I needed to get to the hospital. I went to the RA and asked for a ride to the hospital. When I asked, he said, sorry, I'm technically working so can't, but can call you an ambulance. Fuck that, I'm a bike college kid, so I get a ride from my friend in the next room. After getting to the hospital and getting the multitude of tests done, it was appendicitis and I needed to get emergency surgery. I called my parents to come, and with how long it took, they only arrived after I woke up. I was discharged and sent home with my parents to recover. Now, after a 4 days home, I stared to get bored and, let's say, pent up at this point. It had been weeks since I did anything. I thought, hey, I should be healed enough to release the pressure. After getting started, I noticed that from my meds I was not fully feeling everything the same, and it was a little harder to finish than usual. After 40 min, I felt a little pain but needed to finish, so I went at it harder. After another 10 minutes, I was finally able to complete my task. At the same time, I noticed my pain get worse, then subside. I think nothing of it, clean up and go to bed. The next morning, I'm a mess. I wake up in terrible pain and freezing. I think, okay, let's double my meds and see how that works. By that night, it only got worse. I was on the recliner covered in blankets and in such pain. I asked my mom what the temp was at, and she said 74. That's when I knew it was bad. I had 3 blankets, was freezing still and covered in sweat. I told her I think we need to go to the hospital. We rushed over and it seemed empty. Okay, shouldn't take too long. Boy, I was wrong. We were there for an hour and a half, to the point I said maybe we should go home. I had gotten used to the pain, so wasn't struggling. My mom insisted we stay and at least get checked out. After another 30 min, we get taken to the triage for vitals. All were good until we got to my temperature. I have never seen a nurse turn white until then. She then said, fuck, how are you conscious? Apparently my fever was 105F, which can cause seizures and death. Needless to say, I was rushed into a cooling bed and examined quickly. They found my stitches had ripped and intestinal fluids filled my abdomen. I needed another emergency surgery to clean me out and close the hole. I spent the next 9 days fighting the fever and even had a dream where I died and went to an afterlife. Woke up asking the nurse if I was dead, gave her a good laugh. Needless to say, learned my lesson to wait longer before choking the chicken after surgery. Edit some extra info to be clear. While fighting the fever, they had a drain put in my abdomen to remove any more infection buildup, which is why the fever lasted so long. When they took it out, it felt like they were tugging at my junk cause of how it was positioned. Story 3. TIFU. I learned Guitar Hero ruined my sense of rhythm for over a decade. I've played music since middle school, and Guitar Hero was a big factor in that. I played hundreds of hours of Guitar Hero, bought most of the games, got into Rock Band, and could complete expert-level songs with near 100% accuracy while singing. In high school, I played in all 3 bands, one of which I skipped lunch every day to play in and took music theory class. After high school, I learned multiple instruments, took college-level music theory, and learned about the physics of sound for fun. After college, I got into recording my own music. I barely have over 100 listeners on any of my songs, but it's just a fun, creative outlet. I did not realize my fuck-up until someone made a comment about one of my songs. They said they liked it, but that it sounded like I only ever used the first take because nothing was on beat. I was rushing everything. I thought this was strange. I thought I had a perfectly fine sense of beat. I've played for years and no one has said anything. Well, I go into my digital audio workstation and zoom in on one of the tracks I recorded, and the commenter was right. Everything was just before the beat. I thought maybe this was some mistake of the software, but lag would put me behind the beat, not in front of it. That's when I realized what had happened. In Guitar Hero and Rock Band and any rhythm game, there is lag between your input and the screen. So in order to play accurately, I had learned to predict the beat and played consistently just a little bit ahead. This then transferred to my actual playing. Because most of my playing was either in a large group or by myself, no one ever noticed. But zooming in, I could see it plain as day. I had trained myself even with metronomes that playing a little bit ahead was the right thing. Not by a lot, just a little. But every single time I was consistently ahead. Now I have to retrain decades of muscle memory to actually play on the beat. It's like I'm relearning one of the most basic skills I should have had this whole time. Edit: no, I did not set up the calibration for Guitar Hero. The first one didn't even have calibration. The second one did, but I was still a child and I had already learned to compensate for the lag anyway. For Rock Band, I used exclusively wireless controllers, which introduced their own lag in addition to the visual lag. As for my DAW, I have direct monitoring through my interface. I use ASIO drivers, and even with the various delay compensations turned off, I run into the same timing issue. I never noticed with a metronome because my reference point was Guitar Hero for what felt like on beat, and really at the end of the day, it is not a huge amount of rushing. Story 4. TIFU, by making a promise to a 3-year-old. So many years ago, my daughter was learning to talk, and thanks to my foul mouth, she learned proper use of curse words fairly quickly. We then spent a lengthy amount of time teaching her what words were inappropriate and what to substitute them with. She would quickly get exasperated and explain, in her way, that the substitute words didn't have the same oomph as a curse word. And of course, all the grandparents thought it was hilarious and adorable and encouraged the use of this foul language. At some point during all this teaching, I supposedly promised my 3-year-old daughter that I'd let her cuss when she turned 15. I don't truly remember promising, but I do remember the conversations involved around the time, and I'm sure it was my exasperation that made me promise this. So on her 15th birthday, after blowing out her candles, she immediately jumped for joy, clapping her hands, and exclaimed, "This is the most fantastic F-King birthday ever." Of course I was in shock. Her father immediately WTF'd her, and she launched into what had to have been a planned speech about this promise I made, and how she's been holding onto my words for over a decade, how excited she is to finally be 15. And how she can absolutely curse now because Mom promised. In the end, we talked to her, and explained how that was a promise made in frustration and exasperation, and while it is unfair to hold me to it, we could compromise. The compromise was she only uses the foul language at home, absolutely never at school, and she avoids using it around extended family and her younger brothers who, consequently, are also looking forward to their 15th birthdays, expecting the same deal. I also know I can't stop her from using foul language around her friends, but I told her to limit it to their Discord texting, and again, never at school, never around other kids' parents. We've taught her to use her best judgment on when the word is acceptable, and we've all toned down our cursing foul language. She's generally a really good kid, so if cursing is the worst thing she does as a teenager, I can deal with it. Story 5. TIFU, by accidentally making a sticky bomb in chemical warfare instead of frozen yogurt. So my wife had surgery on Thursday. Nothing major, but she's going to be sore for a couple of days and not be able to use any abdominal muscles from the incisions. Being handy in the kitchen, I wanted to make some foods for her that were a bit extra. Her first meal after getting out of the hospital was a stuffed onion ring burger with loaded mashed potatoes. Like I said, I'm being extra. It's a whole thing. I had this idea for a lemon honey froyo that I was excited to make for her. It's about 9 a.m. at this point, and I was tired of doom scrolling on my phone in bed and decided to get up to make this dish. I knew she was going to be out for a while, because the anesthesia hangover is a hell of a thing. Grab my keys, run to the store, grab Meyer lemons, Greek yogurt, and honey. Head home, grab the juicer, and produced way too much lemon juice. See, I know I can't use all this lemon juice, so I put it in a pot and cranked the heat to reduce it. I bought some pH strips to see how acidic the mixture is, because I know that I can't mix straight lemon juice and yogurt without curdling. I take a strip, dunk it down, and mutter to myself, yeah, that's pretty red. I simmer the juice for 45 minutes until I'm left with a dark yellow sludge. I take the pH strip, dunk it, and it comes out bright red, indicating that it's gotten more acidic while concentrating. Here's the fuck up. I've neutralized acids before, and I always use baking soda. So I poured the hot lemon juice into a blender cup, added honey and baking soda. I initiated the blending for 3 seconds, and then took it off. I go to unscrew the cap, and it's not coming off. I'm putting my full weight into this thing, and it's not budging. This is a first. I'm weighing my options, and bring the blender cup to my face to look at the contents. Bubbles. Like, a lot of bubbles. Too many bubbles. Chef, you ignorant slut, you've just mixed baking soda and vinegar, like a grade school volcano. I realize what's in my hand, and decide that if this thing is going to happen, it's better that it happen outside. So I start running to the sliding door. I make it about 3 steps, and pop. Now, I say pop, but realistically it was more of a gunshot sound. The shock is starting to set in a bit. My hand is numb, and my first thought is that, oh God, I've lost my hand. I look down, we're good to go, hand is there, if not incredibly painful. That's when I start looking around. There's caustic lemon sticky sludge everywhere. The blast zone on the floor is incredible, and the force with which the blender cup exploded left a large divot in the flooring. Everything is covered. The walls are covered. The ceiling is covered. I'm covered. Wonderful. Wasting no time, I know that it's got to get clean. First and foremost, I'm not working in sticky clothes, so I throw my shirt and pants into the wash and put on some flip-flops. To make this context even better, I'm wearing boxers with little cartoon bats on them. This becomes important. Assessing the situation, this looks like a job for bleach. I grab my Clorox and begin spraying. Spraying. SPRSGSDFBNFJ. Why am I woozy? Oh, is that because I just made chloramine gas by combining bleach and whatever the hell mix I have? apparently. So now I'm lightheaded and it hurts to breathe. This is the exact second when my cat runs out right through ground zero and gets bleach and sludge on her paws. I scuffed her, took her to the bathroom, ran some water, and washed her paws. She's only a year old, so she's not too familiar with this water business, and proceeds to flip an absolute bitch. I now have claw marks down my chest with a decent amount of bleeding. But she's contained, and I consider this a win. I leave her in the bathroom and close the door. The only option I have to protect myself is a neck gaiter that I have from the video game Dishonored 2 and a pair of swimming goggles. But honestly, most of the gas has left since all of the windows are open. I start scrubbing, and then break out the steam mop. Unfortunately, as I would learn in hindsight, all this literally did was stretch out the honey to a thin film across the entirety of my house, so all of the floors were sticky. But at least they look clean. I cleaned the walls and broke out the ladder to get to the ceiling. This is the moment my wife walks out of the bedroom. So, post-surgery 14-hour sleep, this is what she sees her husband in bat boxers, standing on a ladder in the kitchen wearing flip-flops, goggles, a neck scarf, holding a bottle of bleach and a sponge, blood on the chest, and a cowlick in the hair from the sludge. I yelled I can explain everything.